Welcome to the Echo Tips podcast.
Here's a sneak peek into what we're going to cover in this week's episode of the Echo Tips podcast. Are you using your new AI-enhanced voice?
I am indeed. How do you like it? Here's an example of a sentence that I would have struggled with in the past. The cat sat on the mat, waiting for the rat to come back with the bat that he had taken from the fat man in the hat.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Echo Tips podcast this week. This week we're going to be delving back into some of those AI announcements from Amazon this past fall in September of 2023, where they talked about a new AI lady that we do now have access to in beta, which you've probably heard several of our past shows about that. Well, as you can tell from our prelude today, we're going to be delving into a little more demonstrations with that, and in particular about a hunch I had, or a thought I had, or maybe I should have just been paying closer attention to the fact that I feel like, or had thought, that the A-Lady's voice may be making some improvements, may be moving towards that really improved AI voice that was demonstrated at the Amazon event. And we've heard such voices in other places and other things. Maybe we've heard some better dialogue, construction, and pronunciation, maybe in Character AI, which uses some of Amazon's back-end information to kind of make that speech possible. We've definitely heard it in OpenAI's text-to-speech engines and the way they implement things with AI smartness. But what about the Amazon ecosystem and the A-Lady of the future? Will she sound more robotic, or will she sound much more natural? Well, we kind of get a taste of that today, and I actually started burrowing into it a little more, and it does look like very likely that voice is available in the beta program, or at least depending on when you launch it, certain versions of the beta program. So there's a good chance you're going to be able to hear what I'm demonstrating today. But before we delve into that in any sort of detail, I'd like to first welcome our new listeners who have no idea what they got themselves into. We'd like to welcome you to the Echo Tips podcast. I'm the host, David Ward. I'm an assistive technology instructor with the New Vision program at Goodwill, and it's great to have you with us. Welcome to the Echo Tips podcast. We have nuggetized episodes. We try to keep it 5 to 15 minutes long, although last week I definitely went a little bit longer, but there was so much to say. And you can look at our back catalog of some 5 seasons to learn almost anything you can imagine about our Amazon Echoes, from timers, reminders, skills, games, home automation, things for parents, kids, caregivers, seniors, disability, accessibility tools built into our Echoes, just so much stuff. And in fact, we'll probably be dusting some of those off and revisiting them for folks that maybe didn't have an Amazon Echo back during those 5 seasons, and maybe just help facilitate that surfacing that kind of information to y'all. But today we're going to cover, like I said, something that I feel like I discovered and connected with that new voice, the inflection, the pronunciation, the timing. I think the timing is something that is very obvious to me. The pauses and the way, not robotic timing is always the same. So we're going to hear that today in our demonstrations. But before we delve into that in any sort of detail, we're going to go to a brief message about our podcast, and then, as always, we will be right back.
This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a non-profit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. And we thank you for listening. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision.
Well, hello again, and welcome back to the podcast. It's good to have you guys with us again, and gals, and we're going to be really delving into that AI beta voice that was demonstrated back at Amazon's event in September. And, I've been, listening to the AI, and in the first weeks I played with it, and it didn't sound any different, really, than the traditional A-Lady. But I've had sneaking suspicions lately when I've interacted with it. I hear inflection, I hear different things. I'm like, that sounds a lot more emphatic, more emotional than I remember. And what probably proved it even more to me is in the last couple of demos where I've tried to been recording it, its volume and certain things are clearly different than the traditional voice. But also, I decided I needed to dig into this, stop guessing and try and see if I can figure out a way. And you know what? The A-Lady answered the question for me. That's right. She said, yeah, this is a new voice, at least in one of the times that I opened the A-Lady AI beta. So as you might recall from a past episode, it seems every other time when you open it, it can open to version 1, version 3, version 4. I don't know if I've heard anything past version 4, maybe like a 4.4. I don't think I've heard of 5 yet. And but those seem to denote different levels of complexity, although it could be just a farce. I don't know. It's just like spitting out numbers, like hallucinations. But they do seem to be iterative changes. I only say that because there's certain things that seem to be backported in certain ways, like the safety and guardrail system to help prevent inappropriate content, as an example, or hate speech, or foul language. Sometimes seems to be operative at level 1.0 and 4.0. It depends. In the old days, it definitely wasn't that way. If I got 1.0, it didn't seem like there was any safeguards at all. It would hallucinate. It was crazy. But I don't know. I mean, the way this is being implemented, it's kind of a black box. But the voice is what we're going to focus on today. So first off, if you have an echo and hearing distance to me, I'm just about to start doing the demonstration. And so just give you a second. You might want to shut its ears off, especially if it's even in the next room. They're pretty amazing how they can hear you across the house. But we're going to delve right into that. I'm using the Classroom's Amazon Echo Show 8, which has the newest processors and things like in it that we have recently demonstrated some other cool new features, such as that conversational mode that we talked about recently. But we're going to delve right into this. Okay. All right. So I'm already in the AI beta. And I didn't want to take it out because I was on the version that seemed to be answering the questions the way I wanted them to, so I left it in there. But if you aren't in the AI beta right now or don't have it open, remember you need to say, A-Lady, let's chat, or open, let's chat, or open, let us chat. Actually, there's a million ways you can phrase it almost. A good chance if you already have access to the beta, you will get access to it. And it will pop open, you'll hear a little jingle, and then you're in it. Okay, so I think the one I'm on right now claims to be a version 3.0 or something like that, but the voice, again, is what we want to focus on. And for all I know, this voice is available on all the versions. Like I said, it's kind of a hit or miss sometimes the way it feels like it's implemented. It's kind of hard to figure out. It's a moving target, as it will. All right, so let's delve right in and ask the A-Lady, well, about that very thing. Alexa, are you using your new AI-enhanced voice?
I am indeed. How do you like it?
I think it sounds pretty good.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm always working on improving.
So tell me more about this enhanced voice. In what ways is it enhanced?
Well, I have a new system that allows me to generate more human-like speech. It's really quite impressive.
In what ways is it an improvement?
Well, I can now generate speech that is more natural and fluid. I can also better express emotion and intent.
Okay. So what are some specific ways in which it sounds more natural and improved?
Well, for example, I can now better pronounce difficult words and phrases. I can also better match my speech to the tone and style of the conversation.
Okay. Very good. Anything else?
Yes, I can now also generate more realistic voices for different characters and personalities.
That's pretty amazing.
I'm glad you think so. I'm always working on improving.
Can you generate an example or a sample of the ways in which your voice enhancements have improved? Or that would highlight that?
Sure. Here's an example of a sentence that I would have struggled with in the past. The cat sat on the mat, waiting for the rat to come back with the bat that he had taken from the fat man in the hat.
Okay, I'm impressed. Can you give me another example?
Sure. Here's another example. The politician spoke to the crowd, trying to sway their opinion with his powerful words. He knew that if he could convince them to vote for him, he would be one step closer to achieving his goal of becoming the next president of the United States.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to hear that you're impressed. I'm always working on improving my abilities.
Stop. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of a hint there of how that works. And by the way, I end up actually having to, in post-edit, go back and re-enter into the AI. And on this occasion, it wasn't the 3.0, it was the 1.0. But it still responded with the voice that we were talking about. So very kind of cool, interesting. We're actually going to do a real quick comparison here to the old voice, just so you can kind of see the demarcation. It's not always obvious, but I think she did probably give some kind of neat examples. And the odd thing about it is the what was it she mentioned? Pronunciation. I've kind of noticed that not only with her voice, character AI's voice, OpenAI's voices, it just seems to be, I don't know if there's a native component or the way they structure words, they're more familiar with this is read and not read, and this is, different words that may, live versus live, like it's when they structure it, they are more familiar, I think, with the word uses. In fact, I can't even recall the last time I've heard one of the AI voices mix those up. And sometimes pronouncing names from different regions of the world and different things, I feel like wow, I think you said that the right way. So I'm impressed. So, but anyway, let's just try one more final example here of describing a piece of artwork, The Starry Night, and then I will compare that with the non-AI voice from the A-Lady, although it's kind of hard to do unless you have verbatim sentences, but I couldn't quite figure out a way to do that, short of maybe having her read a Wikipedia article, which isn't usually containing that much emotional content anyway. It almost needs to be like a dialogue or something, but anywho, let's give this a try. Alexa, describe the famous painting The Starry Night.
The Starry Night is an oil-on-canvas painting created by Dutch painter Vincent van Gogh in 1889 during his stay in an asylum in southern France. The painting depicts the view from his window at night, with a swirling, vibrant sky filled with bright stars and a crescent moon. The village and surrounding landscape are depicted in a dreamy, abstract way, with thick brushstrokes and bold colors. The painting is considered one of Van Gogh's most famous and iconic works, and is renowned for its vibrant colors, dynamic brushwork, and expressive quality.
Exit.
Thanks for chatting.
Let's now compare it here, now that I've exited, to the traditional A-Lady. And like I said, it'd be great if they could read the exact same dialogue, but unfortunately, I can't figure out an easy way to do that. Alexa, describe the Starry Night painting.
The Starry Night is an oil-on-canvas painting by the Dutch post-impressionist painter Vincent van Gogh.
So, you see, I feel like it's just... She didn't give us a lot to work with there, but just kind of, I don't know, it seems to lack that that same sort of inflection and different things. And the timing especially, I think, is obvious. But anyway, so there you go. That is a quick little demo. Be especially interesting to see how this advances. She might even said that in one of her statements about different voices, to see if we get access to new voices, other AI voices, just other than this one single voice, even if they're something we can purchase or different things like that. It'd be really amazing. And a lot like the conversational mode or other conversation capabilities, just as a reminder, when we were in the AI beta there, it has like follow-up mode automatically on. So by default, after she responds, she's continuing to listen for a while to see if I ask her any additional questions without even saying her name. She'll just follow up and say, that's why you didn't keep hearing me say, A lady, this, back and forth. So, but between that simple thing, the other thing we talked about recently, conversation mode, which is connected with looking at the device to engage her, and then the simple ability for her to keep the context awareness, and now the natural voice, it really kind of really feeds into a, you're kind of like, you're like Alice in Wonderland. You're going down the rabbit hole, and if you don't think too hard about it, you feel like you're really having, not a conversation with a person so much, but you really feel like you can drill down into a subject and find out stuff and material. And like I think I mentioned in a past episode, when you go back to just using the traditional A lady, you really figure out how limited she is in a way, because you got to phrase something in a very specific way, yada, yada, question mark, blah, 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 or do this, while you could tell that my dialogue, I wasn't reading from something I written down. It wasn't exactly perfect. I probably wasn't using the exact words or diction or whatever, but she figured it out, and she gave us the response. So all these things are leading towards that. Captain Kirk talking to the computer, Captain Picard talking to the computer. It's just pretty wild to see where we'll be here in the near future. Well, anyway, if you have any thoughts or suggestions for a future episode with me, or just like to say, hey, kudos, Dave, or whatever the case may be, we'd love to hear your feedback on Facebook or Twitter, now known as X, at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys. And you can even drop us an old-fashioned email at info@goodwillvalleys.com. And I would just say, in either one of those cases, just earmark it in such a way that you can say it's for Dave of the Echo Tips podcast or the New Vision program, and that way the message will find its way to me. Well, until next time, it's time to turn the ears back on your Echo. Start practicing some of the many things that you've learned. I'm David Ward for the New Vision program, and we do thank you for listening.
Thanks, Dave. Let me tell you a bit more. Let me put on my official sounding voice. Ahem. This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision. Phew! Thanks for listening.